we are going to read For Liberty, the story of the Boston Massacre by Timothy Decker. Now remember we talked a little bit about the taxes, right? And how everybody, they weren't liking that, were they? No, what were their feelings?
They were like very, very mad.
Yeah, they were getting a little bit angry. Very frustrated.
They were like kind of like lost because
Yes. So they were soldiers in Boston now. So let's read this. This will give us a little bit of background before then. From 1753 until 1760, the nations of Great Britain and France waged war against the world. The two empires fought over religion, politics, and natural resources. The war drained both countries of men and money. Unable to destroy each other, they agreed to a fragile peace. And remember, that's when the taxes began. The following years brought further hardship to Great Britain and its colonies. The war produced a debt that had to be paid. Parliament created new taxes as a solution to the problem. The colonists in North America had no voice in Parliament, but they were required to obey its laws. In Boston, some businessmen and tradesmen opposed the taxes. So right here, what do we have here? Sons of Liberty, defend your rights and property, pay no import duty. What do you think another word for duty could be? Dia.
your work.
So pay no import duty. Good job. I'm going to tell you it means a tax. Okay? Because that's what we're talking about, the taxes. So this would be something that you would see up in Boston. Called the Sons of Liberty, they ruled the city through boycotts and riots. Citizens loyal to the king were threatened and attacked. British troops were sent to protect lives and property. We knew that, but the British troops were in Boston. By March 5th, 1770, it was dangerous to be a soldier in Boston. Bells pealed throughout the city, a call to fight a fire that didn't exist. As planned, the streets were full of rioters and thugs. At the customs house, Private White found himself harassed by apprentices and street toughs, mere boys. Then up from the docks came sailors and ruffians armed with clubs and cutlasses. The mob swelled. The reasonable men went home. The bellicose remained. Bellicose. So if the reasonable men went home, what would the bellicose men? What do you think? What do you think, Brady?
I think the bellicose means like the soldiers.
So the definition of bellicose is that they're aggressive and they're willing to fight. So the ones that were willing to fight remained. Sorry, guys. A sentry saw Pirate White in distress and sought help from the officers of the 29th Regiment on foot. Aware of the unrest in the city, the officers discussed what action to take. They could hear the growing din as they talked. It was decided that Captain Prescott would lead a group of soldiers to rescue Private White and disperse the mob. Captain Preston, Corporal Wells, Private Carroll, Private Kilroy, Private Warren, Private Montgomery, Private Hardigan, and Private Macaulay marched toward King Street. Showing their way through the crowd, the soldiers reached Private White. He joined their ranks. Sensing the danger, Captain Preston tried to lead his men back to their barracks. The throng of colonists grew, as did the roar of their cries. The angry crowd could not let the soldiers through. Captain Preston ordered the soldiers to form a line near the corner of the custom house. Thus set, they could best defend the king's property and themselves. The mob insulted the soldiers and dared them to fire. They pelted the soldiers with snowballs, stones, and chunks of ice. Captain Preston stood between his men and the colonists. Surely the mob would not assault a trained soldier. Surely his men would not fire for fear of shooting their officer. Certainly a show of force would dissolve the anger. Justice of the Peace James Murray hurried to King Street. He carried a copy of the Riot Act. If he could read it to the crowd, and they'd have to go
Mrs.
home.
Auger,
Yes.
can I have Andy and Jackie?
Sure.
Thank you.
But tough men and angry boys blocked his path and threatened him. Fearing for his life, Murray fled. Then one of the missiles hit Private Montgomery and dropped him to the ground. Look at this. Why do you think that there's no words on this page? What do you think?
Like maybe you have to make up your own words, or you have to just look at the picture and try to figure out what
Are the pictures, are there faces in the pictures telling us a lie? Did you want to add something, Abhishek? Pain and fear turned into rage. So this could be the turning point, right? The turning point of the colonists saying that's enough. And maybe the beginning of war. Let me go to the nurse. The shot surprised everyone. Turning, Captain Preston lost his footing. As he fell, he was struck by a club. A moment of silence descended over the street, and Preston sought protection behind his soldiers. Another picture with no words. Another illustration. Says a lot though, doesn't it? The night became a mix of shouting, punctuated by explosions of musket fire. After a few minutes of chaos, Captain Preston saw that his men were no longer in danger. He showed their musket barrels skyward in restored order. The stunned crowd backed away. The bells continued to ring as signaling of the new tragedy. The sun rose on a changed city. The soldiers were taken into custody, and this protected them from the angry citizens. The rule of law demanded an investigation. Lawyers were hired to prove that the soldiers provoked the riot. John Adams was chosen to lead the defense and prove that the soldiers were attacked. The trial of Captain Preston began in October. The story of the massacre was told before the court, and witnesses spoke of the noise and confusion, the raised muskets and the hurled stones. But none could prove that Captain Preston ordered his men to fire. He was found not guilty. So we're going to learn a lot more about John Adams, and you're going to find out that for him to defend a soldier from the king's men was probably hard for him. In November, the soldiers stood trial, and John Adams spoke. Soldiers quartered in populous town will always, on occasion, to mobs, where they prevent one. They are wretched conservators of peace. It was decided that the soldiers rightly defended their lives. Most of the soldiers were found not guilty. The two soldiers thought to have first fired were branded. The Boston Massacre was the first in a series of conflicts between the Sons of Liberty and the agents of the king. Expensive tea was tossed into the harbor. Gunpowder and muskets were collected and hidden in the countryside. In time, all of the American colonies would challenge the power of British rule. Eventually, there would be war. And what's the name of that war? The John Adams foresaw a troubled future. The lawless mob and the presence of soldiers were signs of a defective system of government. He understood that no nation had dominion over liberty, the protection of one person from the actions of another. He knew that liberty was precious and required wise, vigilant, and reasonable citizens to protect it. even at times from the ignorance of one's own country. So I just want to ask you a couple of questions. Why do you think the author chose to have this entire book illustrated in black and white? Tanvi.
Maybe so we could focus a little bit more on what the book is about.
Focus more about what the book is about. What do you think, Sarah? In the 1800s? Okay. Do you want to add something, Sana? Do you think it changes the mood a little bit too? Because was it a happy time? Do you want to add something, Dia? Okay, because you think most of it's taking place at night. What do you think about their faces? Did anybody notice their faces? Their eyes look like they're almost closed in most of them. Look. What are their eyes telling us? They're sleepy. Tired? What do you think, Brady? Oh, scared. Do you think your eyes could show a lot of emotion? So it could be mad, they're upset, they're scared, furious, nervous. That's a very good one. I'm sorry, guys. What does this picture show us? What do we know that's going to be coming up in the American Revolution?
Maybe Paul Revere.
Maybe this is a foreshadowing of Paul Revere. All right, so tomorrow, this was the point of view